Hello, everyone. Welcome to our financial literacy presentation by Tony Warfield. For any of you who weren't here at our April workshop, I wanted to briefly introduce him. Tony is someone who has seen a lot of the world and believes that wealth is not just about money. It's also about heart and it's about spirit. We know money doesn't buy happiness, but it's also true that the lack of money can make you pretty miserable. I work on the state level to make sure people have the resources they need. Tony works on the local level in Paramount, which is in my district, to make sure that to help them to understand how to protect and grow their resources. In April, he focused on planning and preparation. If you didn't get a chance to see Tony's presentation back then, you can find and watch it on my Facebook page under videos. Tonight, he's going to talk about credit and borrowing. Using credit is a way to increase your purchasing power for things you need. However, the key is to use it wisely because people can get into big trouble if they are not careful about where they get credit or how they use it. The wrong kind of borrowing can leave you worse off than you were before. Tony's here to talk you through some of those ideas. Let's get into his presentation, and thank you for being here tonight, Tony.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker. I appreciate you allowing me to be on for a second time. I'm really excited. I'm thanking everyone that's watching this today for attending. I really appreciate it. You could have been anywhere, but you're here with us today. But there's a lot of information I'm going to be talking about. So I wanted to jump into it right now. Let me share my screen. Okay, so again, thank you so much. We are going to be talking about improving your purchasing power. You know, a lot of people, especially after COVID, have had some financial challenges, losing their jobs, losing their homes, basically losing out, you know, big time in a lot of ways. And I'm hoping to be able to, you know, share some insight, answer a few questions that were asked of me. Basically, I tailor-made this presentation for those questions. So I wanted to be able to cover a few things real quick. But before I get started, just as the speaker mentioned, we did cover a little bit about planning in our last presentation. So I wanted to just go through the talking points there. Don't spend more than you make, plain and simple. Set aside 3 to 6 months worth of income to be able to cover your monthly bills. Try to pay more than the minimum on your credit cards because the interest rates are going to kill you. Pay your debts on time. That is 35% of your credit score. And check your credit health very often. A lot of times, things come up and they sneak up on you, and we really don't want that. Protect your family and your income. Make sure your retirement savings outpaces inflation. What does that mean? If inflation is going up 4%, you got to make sure that your money is earning more than 4% every year. Avoid any unnecessary financial risk. You know, with everything being as volatile as it is today, you don't want to take any more risk than you necessarily have to. Don't take your money too soon. You know, right now the IRS is talking about you can't take your money before 59 and a half, and you got to get that required minimum distribution before 72, or they're going to be able to tax you up to half of what you have in your retirement account. And make sure you leave a legacy to your family. I know a lot of people go, I don't want to leave my kids anything, but you know, every generation gets a little bit more difficult, even if it doesn't seem like it does. So we want to make sure we leave our children in the best possible position as we can. So last presentation, we got a chance to look at a lot of information. And I want to make sure everybody, listening to the sound of my voice knows that none of this information I'm sharing with you today is proprietary. So please, please, please feel free to take a screenshot, take your notes, take the screenshots. We're going to be going through quite a bit of information. A lot of it's written down. I'm not going to read every bit of information. So feel free to take the screenshot. And of course, we can talk about a lot of that information in the Q&A session. So real quick, what I want to focus on today is get your money right and avoid the companies that celebrate your impatience due to lack of knowledge. We want that new car, we want that new house, and we want it now, but now might not be the best time to get it. So it is your right to be informed. And this is a good opportunity for you to be able to get that. So just like with the last presentation, I love asking those questions, right? So do you know your current FICO score? And if you do know your current FICO score, is your current FICO score less than 780? So please put your answer in the chat pod. I'll wait. And while you're thinking about that, do you feel that your current financial knowledge is enough to get you where you wish to go? Place that in the chat pod as well. Then we'll be covering that a little bit later on in the presentation. So what we're going to be talking about tonight is what is a good credit score, the key factors, credit bureaus, how to boost your credit, some of the warnings that you need to look out for, and of course, know your rights. So a lot of people, they don't really know what a good credit score is. The national average is finally above 700 right about now. But a good credit score is a credit score that'll allow you to get more for your money. So to give you an idea of what that looks like, say one person wants to buy a car and his FICO score, as you see here, is less than 500. He's going to be paying $500 a month for 84 months, right? For a car that's $21,000. After the course of that, that loan, he's literally going to pay double that. Well, if someone who has what, 760, greater than the 760, is only going to be paying about $400 for 60 months. Over the course of the loan, they're only going to be paying about $3,000 in interest versus another $20,000 if your FICO score is not so great. So a lot of people, I know that everybody's looking at Bitcoin and what's going on with the economy and everything, but truth be told, credit is king. And, it's just like being in school, right? The better your grades, the more opportunities you have, the more options that are available to you. So we definitely want to make sure we focus on getting our grades up. So some of the key factors, there's well over 500 algorithms that calculate your credit score using, various whatever, they can be looking at your credit history. They can be looking at your utilization, your length of credit, mix, inquiries, and of course, your derogatories. For your credit length, anything more than 2 years starts to look pretty good. It's better to have more than about 5 years. The longer your credit history, the better off you are. Your credit mix, how many different types of credits you have. You get access to those points. Those inquiries, we're going to be talking about that a little bit later, but inquiries can actually hurt you. So we're going to talk about how to better, navigate your inquiries. But the big three that we're going to be talking about today is going to be your credit history, your credit utilization, and those derogatories. So you want to make sure you get a chance to take a look at your credit report. You want to look at your credit report as often as you can. You get one for free. And if there's something wrong with it or anything, you might get another one for free. And if you need more, you might have to pay for them, but you definitely want to make sure you monitor your credit as often as possible. So when you look at your credit report, say you're going to be looking at your credit history, green is king, right? So when you look at your payments, everything that says okay, or it's a check mark, that's good. But believe me, if you start getting those 30, 60, 90, and so on, it's going to really start to tank your credit score. So let's talk about a 30-day quick. If you have a payment that's due and 29 days after the due date, you finally pay it, it's still not 30 days, you're still good to go. You might have to pay a fee, but you're still good to go. But day 31, they're going to hit you with that 30-day late. Now, you can imagine, say you've had a credit card for 10 months, right? And you get one 30-day late in that one 10-month period. That's 1 out of 10 payments that's late. That makes it a 90% for you. 90% is terrible for credit history. They're going to tank you, right? So you want to continue to add more good on-time payments to your credit history to be able to wash that down from that 90 and build it back up to your 99 minimum. And of course, 100 is best, but sometimes it's a little bit difficult. But of course, you can look at some of the, the repossessions, your insurance claims, charge-off collections. And we're going to be talking about collections in detail later. So did you know that, a lot of employers actually do look at your credit report? They look at your consumer reports and everything else. But, a lot of people, they might be interested in getting a job in financial industry. They want to be a banker. They want to, they want to handle other people's money, so to speak. So they're going to be looking at your credit report to see how you handle your money, right? Especially if you have a history of fraud or anything like that. So they really want to know that. But it's important for you to know that you need to know what they're looking at your credit report for. You don't want them to misuse your information. You definitely don't want them to sell your information. I get like 15 or 20, possibly more text messages from all these grants that I'm supposed to be eligible for, or how many times have you gotten that, your warranty is up, that call drives me crazy, but that's because someone sold my information. So you definitely want to watch out. And another important reason is you might have seen your credit report, your FICO score was 700 points, right? You think your FICO score is still 700 points. You apply for that new job. Next thing you know, you don't get the job because your FICO score is now 600, because you didn't know that people have been looking at your credit report for that year. So you definitely want to monitor that as often as you can. So credit utilization is another biggie. So a lot of people who might not have a credit card right now, we just now finished the school year. We have a lot of high school students just getting out of high school. Congratulations. Congratulations to all the college graduates as well. But if you don't have a credit card, you miss out on accessing about 165 available points. So, it's really easy. You can get yourself a secured card or something like that, a couple $100. Now you have access, pay a few payments on time. Now it starts getting reported to the credit agency. You have access to the 165 points, but you definitely want to make sure you make your payments on time. So another common question that I get is, how many credit cards can I have? 1, 2, 3. You can have as many credit cards as you can manage. What does that mean? As many credit cards as you can manage. So if you can manage 10, have 10. If say each one of them has about $1,000 worth of credit, that gives you $10,000 worth of available credit. It looks good. And you want to make sure you use them. Why? Because it looks good. You're showing responsible usage of your credit. But if you can't manage 10, you can't manage 4, you can't manage 1, you probably shouldn't have it, right? You definitely want to learn. You don't want to exceed more than 30% of the overall usage of your credit card. It's going to happen, believe me, but you don't want that statement closing gate to close while you still owe more than that, because it can really lower your FICO score. And you can see the picture down here, what that looks like. Having, owing that much money, you need to understand that credit is not free money. Credit is basically a loan that they charge you an immense amount of money for if you don't make those payments on time each month. So did you know that you're actually protected though? So, you have the Fair Credit Reporting Act, the Equal Credit Opportunity Act, the Fair Credit Billing Act, and the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act. We're going to be talking about that a little bit later. So, there's actually thousands of credit reporting agencies out there, but you can pretty much bet on the top 3, your Experian, your Equifax, and your TransUnion. Now, I wanted you to see this particular slide because I think you might have heard about VantageScore and a few other different scoring systems out there. But right now, FICO is king. FICO is really king, and most of them are using your FICO score 8. But I wanted to touch bases with you, touched on this real quick. So you have different versions of it, right? So if you're looking to get an auto loan, right? Everybody's using FICO score 8, but Experian is using 2 as well, 5 for Equifax, 4 for TransUnion. If you're looking to get a credit card, Experian is usually pretty difficult, and they're using 3 and 2 as well as 8, and you have 5 for Equifax and 4 for TransUnion. But look, I understand that rents are really, really crazy, and a lot of people are really starting to look at purchasing a home. But when you look at your credit report, you might see one FICO score saying 726, one saying 648, and the other one saying 701. The reason why that is because Experian is using FICO score 2. And Equifax 5 and TransUnion 4. Now they might be looking at your middle score. Equifax, from what I've seen, is usually pretty lenient. TransUnion is usually a little bit more accessible. Experian, they can be really hard, but whichever one is giving you the best score, that's the one you want to go with. Now, we're not going to cover exactly what 2, 4, 5, and 8 are doing. I just wanted you to be able to take a look at this. Make sure you take a screenshot so you can be able to study this after this workshop, because I think it's something that you might really be interested in learning a little bit more about. So if you were in the last presentation, I love, taking tests, right? So a borrower with bad credit will find it difficult to get their loan approved because they are considered a credit risk. So some of the most common factors for bad credit are listed below. Which one is not a bad factor? So if we were to look at A, late payments, bankruptcy, paying your bills early, charge-offs, defaulting on loans, which one do you think would be the one that does not belong in this list? I'll wait, put it in the chat pod. Now, of course, I can't see it, so I just got to believe everybody selected C, and you'd be right. Paying your bills early does not negatively impact your credit score. In fact, it's often better, makes it better. So that's definitely something to consider, but watch out for those charge-offs and those defaulting on loans. We're going to talk about that a little bit more later as well. So the credit bureaus have a burden of proof, right? but they have zero incentive to do anything for you. If you have any information on your credit report and it's not so good, they have no incentive to remove it. They get paid to report on you. But it's important for you to know that anything on your credit report that's incorrect, erroneous, inaccurate, or unfair, you got to challenge it, right? So one big tip that I can offer everybody on here to help you with your credit report, like right now, today, you could literally get off of this meeting and do this right now, today, is go to your personal update form on your credit report. You can get a free credit report. You can access it. A lot of people are using Credit Karma and all these other different things. Get your personal update form. Anything that you can cross-reference to any derogatory item on your credit report, like your name, your social security number, your address, your phone number. If you have multiple names, aliases, they mistyped your social security number. You've had 15 different addresses. You don't live in any of them anymore. 19 different phone numbers. You done had 5 different employers. If any of those phone numbers, addresses, or employers are associated with anything derogatory, just update your personal information form to where you live, your current phone number, your current job, social security number, and all that stuff that's associated, all those identifiers that's associated to the derogatories. If the credit bureaus cannot prove what is on your credit report is accurate, it must be removed. You can knock this out, in like six or 7 weeks, maybe a little bit longer, maybe a little bit shorter, but this will definitely be a way for you to be able to clear that out. Now, the common question is, well, what happens if I have a derogatory and I happen to live at that same location? There are ways around that. I'm not going to discuss that in this workshop, but we definitely can link up after this discussion and we can give you more options. So a couple of things I wanted to show you about derogatory marks. And this is important because, a lot of people, I have heard said that during COVID, a lot of people said that they didn't have to pay their rent or they didn't have to pay whatever bills or whatever. No, you have to pay that, especially if you're still living in a house. And, a lot of people are suffering from evictions and, various other financial challenges. But I want you to understand what these derogatory marks do to your credit. So inquiries, each one is about 7 points off your credit report, right? So a lot of people that are looking for a house right now, if you're looking for a house, try to do your search inside of a 2-week period. That way, every one of the inquiries that the banks give you, it is considered just one. So you only suffer one 7-point loss as opposed to multiples if you spread that over several months. But those collections, they're going to get you. And so let's go back to when we were talking about, you're applying for another job. You remembered you had a FICO score of 720 points, but you just got a collection for a cell phone bill that you only owe $100 for. You might have forgotten about it, but that $100 that you owe that collection, that you owe the telephone company, is now a 100-point deficit on your credit. And now you're not looking at getting the job because you don't know how to manage your credit. You don't know how to manage your finances properly. That can really hurt you. Bankruptcies usually stay on your credit report anywhere between 7 and 10 years, possibly longer, because again, the credit agencies don't really care about removing any information off your credit report. They get paid to keep it on there, right? And charge-offs as well. You don't know how it will impact you. It could be a little bit more, it could be a little bit less, but it's never good to have these things. So we definitely want to watch out for that. So you have a few options. If you owe the money, pay it. Option number 1. Option number 2, you can go ahead and start writing those letters. And I know a lot of people think they might have heard about the 609 letters. That's not really the one. You want to look up the form 611. That's the one that's going to help you be able to remove some of the inaccuracies or inconsistencies from your credit report. You can do that yourself. You can also use credit companies, those monthly credit companies would pay $100, $150 a month. Those, they're great, but just like with the credit, the bureaus, they don't really have any incentive to get that done quickly. If you're paying $100 a month, $150 a month, they might stretch that over 6 to 24 months. They'll get it done, but they're not trying to really get that done quickly. If you got about 10, 20,000 people that are your customers paying $100 a month, you're probably going to want to continue making that money. So I would take a screenshot of this and definitely consider that. But if you say you want that new job or you're trying to get your FICO score up right now, right? You want to get this done quickly. then if time is of the essence and it's the most important to you, you definitely want to go ahead and pay whatever company that has what various types of software or a better system to be able to knock that out for you between 45 and 90 days. Now, I will tell you, I don't subscribe to, or I don't support, or I don't endorse any particular company. This is something that, you know, you can give me a call, shoot me an email. We can work through that together to find out exactly what you need. But I'm just here to tell you the truth. I'm not here to endorse anybody in particular. So I want to talk about boosting your credit. So the best thing that you can do to boost your credit, everyone, please believe me, the best thing that you can do to boost your credit is pay your bills on time. That's the best thing out the gate, right? If you don't have a credit card, get one. That's another 165 points available. You also want to start talking about credit increases. You know, in the last presentation, I talked about calling your creditors, right? A lot of people are afraid to call their creditors, you know, especially if you owe them money. Look, these people just want to get the money. They want to establish a relationship with you. They want to make sure they're going to get their money. So if you're forthcoming with them, you call them, you're giving them a plan, you let them know what you're trying to do. They're usually pretty nice. And I tell you, you be nice too, because these people, they're getting beat up on all the time. So if you call them, try to be a little bit different, be a little bit nicer. You catch more flies with honey. You've heard that before. You want to make sure you pay your revolving debt. So before I get too far with that, a lot of people, they get confused with what's an installment payment versus what's a revolving debt, right? Installments are usually your mortgage, your car note, whatever, right? Pretty much fixed payments. But your revolving debt is your credit cards, right? So your fixed payments, if you're 30-day late, it hurts you, but it's not going to tank your score that much. But if you're over 30% and you're not paying your credit cards on time, that can knock your score down 100 points or more. So you definitely want to make sure you keep your credit card payments below 10%, 2% is ideal. Another thing that you can do to help boost your credit, you know, there's a lot of credit cards out there that give you that 0% introductory rate, and they'll give you that on balance transfers. You might have to pay a fee, or, you know, it's like $70 or 3 to 5%. But if you were to look at, say, if you're carrying a balance, and you're looking to pay that credit card over the course of maybe a year, that 3 to 5% might be negligible compared to how much you're going to be paying in interest over time by just paying the minimum. So definitely consider doing that consolidation. And you want to start adding some positive trade lines. So, you know, a lot of us, we're renting, we got cell phones, we got, you know, Hulu, Netflix, HBO, Cinemax, television, you know, various different things. You have, you know, companies like Rental Karma that, you know, give you credit, you know, for your rental payments, right? You want to make sure you have more than 2 years, because that's 24 on-time payments that you get added to your overall payment history. That definitely helps you out. And you want to add legal trade lines, right? So, you know, a lot of people, they allow you to become an authorized user on whatever their credit accounts. You can buy that from various agencies, but, you know, I'm a little skeptical on that. It makes me a little uncomfortable. It's probably a better idea for you to, you know, somebody who's in great credit standing with their credit card or whatever account, just become an authorized user on your brother's account or your sister's account. The cool thing is, look, if you have a brother or sister that you want to help them out with your credit, you can go ahead and let them become an authorized user on your account. You don't ever have to let them have the credit card. They just become an authorized user. But if you become an authorized user on someone else's account, make sure that account is in good standing, and make sure they respect the law of making sure they make their payments on time and they don't use more than 30%, because otherwise that can hurt your credit in the long run. So again, make sure those trade lines that you get are legal. So a couple of things that the credit bureaus or the credit companies are looking to qualify you, basically. They want to know how much debt can you handle with your current income. So, you know, a lot of people, you might be trying to get, like, you know, what is that platinum card? You want to get a platinum card, $100,000 credit limit, and you make $40,000 a year. It's probably not going to happen, right? So they want to make sure that you have the money to be able to back up the credit that you're asking for. What is your relationship with your current creditors, right? If you're on time with all your bills and you're making your payments, proper payments, you're good to go. You know, you'll get a pretty decent credit limit on your credit cards. You'll be approved, basically. Your credit score will be pretty good. What assets do you have? So in the last presentation, we did talk about what is an asset. So your house, if it's not making money, it's not an asset, but it is something that can be an asset depending on how much equity that you build up in your home. So if you have a home and you have like a particular car or anything that they can basically take from you if you don't make your payments on time, or if you like cancel before you actually make your, pay all your debt, then they can get those pieces of property from you. So they're definitely going to be looking at that. And how is your financial stability? Now, look, COVID was rough. A lot of people, they lost their jobs. The economy was, pretty much up and down. A lot of people really did well during COVID. Zoom has been a big deal, helped a lot of businesses, but there were a lot of frontline people that did get hurt during COVID. So a lot of them did lose their jobs. A lot of them did lose their homes. And during that time, it was really difficult. But even with that, if you're trying to get money from an organization or trying to get credit from an organization, they are going to look at your stability, and you want to make sure you have a steady income and a steady job before you apply for anything like that. So taking a look at getting a credit card, right? Like I said before, they're going to be looking at your employment situation. Do you have a job? How long have you been working there? How much money do you make? Where do you live? How long you've been living there? What they're trying to do is they're trying to establish, security, stability, right? If you've been living at your house, or you've been living on your neighbor's couch, various neighbors' couches, you have 19 different addresses, you have 15 different jobs, and you made $500 this week and you made $10,000 last week, but you can't prove it, it's going to look pretty iffy. You can imagine, right? So they definitely want you to be stable. And once if they do approve you, that'll depending on how stable you are, they'll give you a $500 limit, they'll give you a $4,000 limit, whatever it is. It really does vary, but it really does matter what you put on that credit application. You don't want to falsify anything that you put on the credit application, but you want to make yourself look as good as you can by telling the truth. So definitely sit down and pay attention to what you're putting on that credit app. So a couple of quick tips real quick. Just call them. If you just got that credit card, you made 3 consecutive payments, 6 consecutive payments, and they only gave you that $500 credit limit, but you're between your cell phone, your gas bill, your light bill, or whatever, that's $200. That automatically puts you at 40% utilization, right? You can call and ask for a credit increase, and just by getting a credit increase, it's going to lower your utilization instantly. You see, right here as my example, say you got about $1,000, you're using 200, right? You ask for an increase, they give you 5,000, you go from 20% to 4% from a phone call. So it's not always scary to call. You call them, it's good, right? So you also can lower your interest rate, right? So a lot of times you apply for these credit cards, and man, 27%, I've seen them get even higher than that. It's crazy. But if you're making your payments on time and you've established yourself as a good customer, feel free to call and ask for a reduction in the percentage rate. Oftentimes, if you're being nice, like I said, these people get beat up all the time. They might go ahead and accommodate you. So don't be afraid to call is the message I want to share. But do be afraid to get a phone call. So a lot of times those creditors are going to call you. They call in the middle of the night. They call early in the morning. They're not your friend. Now, I understand they're doing a job. They are people. Be nice to them. They'll try to be nice to you, but they're not your friend. So please, please, please do not admit the debt is yours. Even if the debt is yours, you suspect the debt is yours, they're calling you at 9 o'clock at night. Do not admit that debt is yours, right? Until you've had time to review whatever information that they're trying to convey to you, right? If you admit the debt is yours and you agree to anything, that resets the clock. Because a lot of times that debt might have, they can't force you to pay it anymore. It might have been past the statute of limitations, right? So, but if you agree to make any payments, you literally reset the clock, and now you're going to be beholden to paying that debt. Do not agree to anything unless you get something in return. So, that you owe $500, you pay the $500 and it's still on your credit report. No, make sure that they promise in writing that they're going to remove that item from your credit report so you can benefit with your FICO score after you make that payment. And probably the best thing I can tell you with respect to that is please, please, please don't answer a phone call at 9 o'clock at night or 6 o'clock at night. Sometimes they call from the East Coast and they call you at some ungodly hour. Do not give them your personal information. Identity theft is real. And a lot of times they'll be really, really nice, and they'll be really urgent and they'll try to get your information from you, it could be somebody that has nothing to do with any debt collection company, and they're just taking advantage of the opportunity to trip you up. So please watch out for that. And I also think you should watch out for those predatory lenders. A lot of you already know 2008 was devastating for me. I took about a 40% loss along with most of America during that time. So you want to be careful if you run into a financial jam. Watch out for those legal loan sharks, payday loans, right? Look, real talk. If you are having a tough time with your money right now, paying another 400% on top of whatever you borrowed is probably going to make it worse. So stay away from those. Come up with another option. Conventional loans can be offered with a FICO score as low as 500 points. But if you really need to get that house, you can get a whole lot more house with a better FICO score. So be more patient and take a little bit more time to get your FICO score in a better position. Watch out for those debt consolidation loans. Do your homework. You could actually be charged a whole bunch of fees and they never even made one payment to any of the debt that you have. So you done paid extra money and still have the same problems. Watch out for that. Watch out for those credit card promotions because they're like, clickbait. And also, if you've never had a credit card, people, make sure you know that's credit. That's not free money. That's like a loan, a very, very expensive loan. And I'm talking to all you high school graduates, recent high school graduates. Look, we hear about so many kids having a tough time with their student loan debts. I know doctors, $500,000 a year who still have student loan debt. This is just a strategy that I could suggest, but if you are going to college and you have to do your general studies first, it doesn't make any sense to get $10,000, $30,000, $60,000 a semester in debt. It's general studies. We got a fantastic Cerritos. We have a fantastic Compton College here in the district. You can go ahead and get your general studies knocked out. You don't have to worry about racking a whole bunch of debt. You can focus your attention on your major and your minor when you're in your junior and senior years. It's just an opportunity for you to be able to save some money in the long run and have a better quality of life. So again, with the questions, which Credit Protection Act gives you the right to a free copy of your credit report at least one time annually, right? So put the answer in your chat pod. Is it the Equal Credit Opportunity Act, the Fair Credit Billing Act, the Fair Credit Reporting Act, or the Fair Debt Practices Act? Which one do you think it is? Of course, I still don't see it, but I'm going to assume everyone said C. So we're going to talk about a couple of those. So we have your Fair Debt Collection Act. We're going to be talking about that. Your Fair Credit and your Equal Opportunity, right, prohibits credit discrimination on the basis of sex, race, marital status, religion, national origin, or age. It's a shame that we have to have something like that, but it's important that we do. The billing, it is important to check your credit billing and their fund transfer account statements regularly. A lot of times you can end up being charged with something that you shouldn't be. So please, please, please watch out for that. We want to talk about the FCRA. You have the right to receive a copy of your credit report. The copy of your report must contain all the information that you're requesting. This is important because you have the right to know the name of anyone who received your credit report in the past year or two. This is important because remember, we talked about you having a FICO score of 700 and you looked at it again at 600, now you don't have the job. This is because people are looking at your information. And if you're not looking at your information and they're hitting you with inquiries, it's tanking your your FICO score. So you want to make sure you are very aware of what's in your credit report as often as possible. So you want to know your rights. We were talking about I was talking about the collection agencies. They're not supposed to call you outside of 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. Now, 9 p.m. is pretty doggone late, but I think it's because most people get off work pretty late. They may not contact you at work if your employer doesn't approve of that. I'm going to say no. Your debt collectors may not harass, oppress, or abuse you, even though they will, because this is a tactic that actually works. Okay, so what happens? You're on the phone, you're already stressed out about something, and they get on the phone and they start telling you, you got to pay this on time. Now they got you all frantic, your blood pressure is up. Next thing you know, you end up being sick because they're trying to urge you to pay a bill that you really don't have to, and you have rights. You are protected. Debt collectors may not lie when collecting debts, such as falsely implying that you have committed a crime. A lot of those scams, they come off with that as well. Debt collectors must identify themselves to you over the phone. This is important because if they tell you that you owe anything, get their name, get their number, get the name of the agency, hang up, and then call back, right? Make sure it's legit. Otherwise, they could be out there trying to hurt you. Debt collectors must stop contacting you if you ask them to do it in writing. So again, get the information, send it to them, tell them to stop. So that pretty much covers that there. Last presentation, someone asked me, did I have a book? And I am working on a book. Thank you very much. I actually wanted to show you a screenshot of one of the pages and some of the things that I want to discuss. Obviously, financial literacy, credit management, inflation, taxation, insurance, investing, and realty using mortgage math. So thank you so much for asking that question. This is not going to be published. It's more like something to give away for free just to help people out, trying to be a part of the solution than a problem. And you also asked about a website. So I did get a web page that makes information available to you. Again, please take a screenshot of this. I'll wait, right? TonyWarfield.gr8.com. And as always, we got to wrap this up. So the takeaway, and again, please take a screenshot, while I'm going through this. The takeaway from this discussion is, monitor your credit monthly as often as you can. Learn more about your credit. The information that I shared with you was literally just touching on, just a few key points to pique your interest in learning more about your credit. It's important. Strive to get that 780 or above. You're literally going to be saving yourself thousands, if not tens of thousands over the course of your lifetime. Again, pay your debts on time. You don't have to worry about collections and charge-offs and all that other stuff if you just pay your debts on time. Look, if you get the credit or if you buy the car or if you get the home, you got to pay for it. Nothing's free in this country. Just pay it on time. Get your free credit report, sit down, go through it in detail and determine what is not accurate. If you got 15 different aliases on there, get rid of 14 of them and find the one that's actually you. Try not to use more than 30% of your credit. Keep the balances low. Credit bureaus are not your friend. I say it again, credit bureaus are not your friend. They have no incentive to remove that information. So you're going to have to do it. Neither are debt collectors. So no matter how nice they talk to you, no matter how sweet they are, do not admit to anything until you find out exactly what that debt is. Know your rights. Go through each one of them and find out how they can benefit you. And when dealing with anyone, again, be nice. And, just a quick tip, it costs too much to be broke. So please, please, please get your money right, especially with the way things are going today. As always, I'm extremely thankful to Speaker Rendon, everything that he's doing in the community right now to help the community and help us residents, especially here in Paramount. I really appreciate him for doing the things that he does. And I really appreciate him for allowing me to be a part of that. So with that, I say thank you very much. And I'd like to open the floor up for questions. Let me stop sharing my screen. And let's see what you got.
Thank you, Tony. You covered a lot of things today. We really appreciate all the information you provided. I want to remind folks that you can always look at this presentation on the speaker's Facebook page. You can always refer to it. If you didn't get a chance to see it, or a friend or a family member didn't get a chance to see it, you can always refer back to this presentation on his Facebook page or on his website. So as a good reference. Some of the
Please do.
Yes. Some of the questions we have here, I think you might have touched on. I think some folks have brought them up because I think they want you to go deeper into some of them. Okay. I myself found these questions very interesting. So I'm just going to dive right in, and then I'll let you know when we have the last question. And yeah, we'll go from there. So the first,
let's see if we got any more boyfriend questions. Those are fun.
Okay, so the first question, it goes as follows: how accurate are some of these new credit score apps? I only ask because my credit card score is higher on one of these apps as opposed to TransUnion credit score.
Okay, you know what? Let me see if I can find the page. Let me share my screen real quick one more time. Let me see if I can find that page real quick. Hold on. We were talking about the different scoring systems, right? And that's a great question. Let me see if I can run through here. So remember, I was talking about, the different FICO scores, right? This is why those scores are different. So depending on what you're looking at, they might be using Vantage Score or some other scoring system. But if they're using the FICO score, they might be using 8, 2, 3, 4, or 5. So go ahead, please take a screenshot of this. It's important because if you understand what they're actually looking for, especially with FICO 10 coming out, I think you'll be able to appreciate why your scores are so different. So please go ahead and take a screenshot of this. I'll wait. All right, and if you don't know how to take a screenshot, was it Control and then print screen on your desktop? And I think it's just like you hit this little button on the side of your Android or your iPhone, and it gives you the selection to do a screenshot. Go ahead and save that. 3, 2, 1, go. So yes, that's usually the reason why those scores are so different.
Thank you, Tony.
Yes, sir.
We'll do another one. This one is slightly different. A person wrote, with the exception of buying a home, can I survive without using credit cards at all?
Well, credit is king, but cash is king. So you can survive, but the conversation I'm trying to have with everybody today is not surviving. The conversation I'm trying to have with everybody today is living, right? So what's the difference? You can, okay, I'm from the inner city, so we survived on top ramen noodles and hot dogs, but I prefer a ribeye, just so you know. So the hot dogs and ramen noodles is surviving, but living is getting a ribeye. So yes, you can survive on that cash, but what happens when you run out of cash? What happens when something happens and you really need to, COVID is real. A lot of times people have had some challenges and, you need to go visit a family member on the other side of the country, but you don't have the cash to do it. A credit card can really help you with that. A credit card, even though you have to pay the money back, but it'll help you with short-term problems. It'll help you with short-term problems and you can actually pay it off long-term, right? You have to pay a little bit of a fee, but the alternative is you don't make it to your loved one's funeral or getting to see your mom, when she's, in the hospital, or going to a graduation for your kid, or going to your kid's, marriage. So you can definitely survive, but it's the quality of life that credit offers you.
Thank you for that. That kind of expands on the importance of having some credit available, because it gives you and it grants you a level of options and access. So I see that. It's very valid. The next question, Tony, is a little bit interesting. So here it goes. I recently applied for a credit card. I've been receiving credit card offers. What is a good APR rate when signing up for a new credit card?
Okay, that's a great question. There is no such thing as a good APR rate for a credit card. Let me just go ahead and say that right now. A lot of times when you apply for a new credit card, you'll see them, they'll give you like 14%, 13%. You'll see them as high as 27%. But you can usually see whatever the percentage rates are for that credit card. Now, the credit cards, like say you're using a clickbait on Credit Karma, right? They're going to get you the trashiest cards out there. Those are the ones that are like 24% and up. Yeah, stay away from those. If they're offering you, every card that's offering you 24% and up or something like that, just get your FICO score a little bit better. When you get your FICO score better, those interest rates will get better. So how soon do you need the credit? And if you don't need the credit right now, focus on getting your FICO score better so you can get those 16 to 24% or those 8 to 16, and possibly even better depending on how much money you make and what your credit score looks like. But I would stay away from anything over, 16%. You can usually see it on a credit application, but 16% is high. What's good, what you can kind of expect, you can, a good one would be like 8% or, I've actually seen them I don't have it, unfortunately, but I've actually seen them below 8%. If you have the score for that, you can get it. But you can, here's the big deal though. You can actually call the company and ask them to lower that percentage rate as long as you are making your payments on time. So it's really hard to find out exactly what is a good credit interest rate if you don't have the credit score to back it up. If you have that 780, they're going to give you the best stuff out there. If you have that 500, they might not even offer you one at all. But if they do, they're going to offer you just the worst ones. So just make sure you get your credit score right and find out what you're going to get.
Awesome. That makes a lot of sense. The next question has an example attached to it. So
Okay.
it's asking, how do I use my credit cards effectively? For example, to increase my credit card score, should I buy groceries and then pay the amount after the due date or before the due date?
Oh, you know what? I wish I knew this person's name. I love you. Thank you for asking that question. Best question ever. Okay, so I love this question. I'm a little excited about it. If you, the best thing that you can do, again, call the credit company. Find out what your statement closing date is. The due date is irrelevant in this situation. Find out what your statement closing date is. My statement closing date for one of my cards is like the 7th of the month, right? You know it's going to take about 3 days for your payment to be credited. So 3 days prior to the 7th, I'll make my payment. Why is that? Because the statement closing date is the day before or the same day, the reporting date, the date that they report your credit utilization, your payment history to the credit bureaus. So if you wait for the statement closing date, I'm sorry, if you wait for the due date, which is about 21 days after the statement date, what's going to happen is you're not going to get the benefit of making that most recent payment. So a lot of times people want to get a new house or get a car, and they made this big, huge payment on their credit card, but that's not actually going to be, looked at or reported to the credit agency until the following month. But if you make sure that you make that payment on, or actually 3 days before the statement closing date, that payment will post to your account, and then that will be reported to the credit agency, and then you'll get credit for that huge payment. Great, great question. I love it. Please ask another one of those.
Okay, Tony, I hope this one, it being the last one, so we'll close on
Okay.
this, and then you can.
Well, I feel gypped. Okay, what you got?
And then you can make your closing remarks.
Okay.
The last question is, a lot of these credit card companies are now offering point rewards. Are these point rewards that credit card companies are offering actually work, or are they a scam?
Who are these people? I love you. Great question. So I just, I have I like American Express. I use their rewards card, their blue rewards card. I really like it. So no, they are not a scam. At least not the ones I'm using. So, I get about 6% cash back on, certain uses, like, grocery stores, not so much, but general purpose purchases, get about 6% back. And the cool thing about the cash back that you get is you can actually put it towards your statement, right? So anywhere between 25, 50 bucks minimum. Once you get that, you can actually put that towards statement. It doesn't get applied as a payment to your account. It just reduces whatever your total charges are, which is great. No, it's not a scam if you get a reputable company. Now, reputable companies are companies that, you can look up anywhere, and, they're rated, they have the right backings, they have all the documentation and information that's available to you. But the best thing I can tell you is do your research for that. And, again, if your FICO score is really, really great, you can start applying for a lot of these really great credit cards that take care of you. But I will add this. So, you get on an airplane, they're going to offer you a card. You go to Walmart, they're going to offer you a card. They're going to offer you all these different types of credit cards. It's going to offer you all this, all the, credit availability. A lot of them are really great because it increases your overall credit availability. But if you can't manage them, watch out for that. But those cashback cards and those, now I can't really say too much about the frequent flyer mileage cards, but I can tell you this. I've had friends of mine, and I've used like I got free hotel stays, right? Or I've had, hundreds of dollars added to my statement. it's great. Like, again, they won't consider it as a payment because you actually have to make a payment, but it does reduce the amount of money that you owe on your statement. So great question. I appreciate that.
Hey, Tony, we do have one last minute question on our chat box. I'm going to go ahead and read it to you.
Okay.
And then this will be our last one, unfortunately. But
Okay.
again, they can always reach out to you. I'll let you do your
Okay,
spiel
yes.
at the end
Yeah.
and provide your contact information. But
Right.
folks can always reach out to Tony if they want to have a follow-up conversation or they have a question that needs to be answered. But this last question in our chat box goes as follows. Hello, would it be wiser to request a lower annual APR or a higher credit limit first? Does it matter? I rarely have late fees since I pay my balances on time and have just under a 740.
If you got a 700 FICO score, go for it. Which one will benefit you the most? So in my opinion, if you can only ask for one first, always, always, always go for the credit increase. Let me tell you why, right? So if you're using your credit card, say your credit card has a $10,000 limit, right? And you're using about, I don't know, 50% of that card every month on like clockwork. You're paying it off. Like you said, you're making your payments on time, but you're using 50%, right? And say there's an emergency and you just couldn't make that payment this particular month. Well, if you can't make that payment and you end up making a minimum payment, now your credit utilization is still over 30%. That's going to hurt your FICO score, right? So that 740 is going to get lowered, even though you've been making your payments on time. Your payment was still on time, but you're used to paying that 50% off every month, but because of the emergency, you didn't do it. So you call and say, I need a credit increase, right? You call and you get a credit increase, you get a $10,000 limit, you have $5,000 on a card, right? You get that limit increase, say they take you from $10,000 to $20,000. Now that $5,000 goes from 50% to 25%. So if something does happen, you're still below that 30%, right? You're going to get hit, but anything less than 30 is going to hurt you, but not as much as 31% and so on, and definitely not 50%. So I will every time go for the credit limit increase, especially if you're paying your entire balance off every month. The interest rate really doesn't matter as long as you are doing so. But once you get that, go ahead and ask for that. You're on a roll now. You're being nice. Go ahead and get that interest rate decrease. But I would do it after I got the credit limit increase first.
Thank you, Tony. So this is your time.
I love that question. I love it. No, I really appreciate the opportunity again. Thank you, Speaker. Thank you, Mr. Landa, for allowing me to do this. And, I get a lot of questions and, I'm just someone who really wants the community, our community to be better. You're going to have some questions. Please go ahead and, submit your email address and your name to tonywarfield.gr8.com. Add yourself. We do videos. We do all this stuff is just free. I just do it because I really don't want a world where everyone is, 50% of the homeless people that live in this country live in California. I'm trying to lower that number by making sure people know what they're doing with their money. So please, if you have any challenges, if I can help you out, I'm happy to do so. tonywarfield.gr8.com. Reach out to me and definitely go to the speaker's page, watch the videos, and support what he's trying to do because it's really making a lot of differences in the community, and I definitely appreciate that. So with that, I thank you everybody for your time. I thank you, Mr. Landa, and I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Tony. Really appreciate you providing this vital information to our constituents. And like Tony said, we've already done 2 videos. So if you want a refresher of financial literacy, we do have one that's dated in April. So if you were to scroll down on the speaker's Facebook page, you would be able to see it there as well as in his website. And you can also view this one as well that will be uploaded pretty soon. If you have any other questions or concerns, feel free to reach out to our district office. We're here to help out. And again, Tony, thank you for your time and your charisma and all that good information that you provided. And I just want to wish everybody a a good night.
All right. Good night, everybody. Thank you so much.